there, it's been a long time, hasn't it? I've been quite busy recently, but I feel as if I've slowed down quite a lot. So I'm sorry if I've not put up a new podcast recently, but I wanted to finally talk to you about my secret project. Well, it's not exactly secret anymore, is it? I've been actually writing a story that I wanted to create for a character that I imagined would have travelled to the Isle of Westray. I'm calling this little collection my Noltland Collection. It's based on the Noltland Castle on Westray, which has a significant history in the Stuart times in Scotland, and mainly, again, although she actually probably never visited here, was connected to Mary Queen of Scots. I've been reading a lot about her recently and also writing about her, and I'm putting together a little historical novel that kind of turns everything on its head, but I'm not going to tell you about that because that would be ruining it, wouldn't it? In time to come, I shall probably read you a synopsis of it and a couple of chapters so that you can get the idea. But I'm inspired by the Tudor period and the Stuart period. Stuart period relates to the Scottish kings and queens here, which eventually, with Mary Queen of Scots' son James VI of Scotland and James I of England, brought the two countries together under the rulership of one throne. I think I'll put it that way, because it's unless you've read the story, and I'm saying this now, you need to read the book that I've got recently. This one. I've turned a lot of little pages down. It's very good reference material. And so some time ago, in fact last early spring, I started to put together a little collection. As I say, I'm calling it the Noltland Collection, and I'll spell it along the bottom here. And with assistance from AI, I've actually produced a picture of what it might have looked like in those days had it been completed, and I will show you pictures of what it looks like today. My hope was to get across to Westray, because it's about, I think it's an hour and a half from here on the boat, to get to Westray and do some photography and place the garments in the setting and show you some of the places that will feature in my story. But the story will not be finished yet. I'm sort of on chapter 4 now. I'm possibly halfway through. Doesn't feel like it. I feel as if I've got lots more to say, but you know, you've got to stop somewhere, haven't you? The way I'm feeling at the moment, it may even go into a second book with a do they call it a slip history, when you go from modern day to ancient to back again? Oh, I can't remember what they call it. I'll have to look it up and put it on the screen. So I'm sort of working on the fact that my character will have been dead 400 years, but it will involve someone modern looking at their family history and finding out a secret history that's never really been talked about. So, oh, it's hard not to say, isn't it? Never mind. I won't be too long. It's all in here at the moment. So we'll get it all out on paper in due course. So anyway, back to the knitting. So the knitting is based on my ideas for someone living on an island in the Orkney Isles called Westray 400 years ago, who isn't a peasant or an islander as such, but doesn't live in a croft or anything like that, but would have lived in the castle. The castle, as you saw, is quite an amazing building for an island like that, but the story behind it is incredible, basically. So here are some of the items that I made using local yarns, and some yarns from Catalonia in Spain. So here we go. So the first item, which you will have seen before, is a Sophie scarf. So that's not my design at all, but I made that in the some beautiful hand-dyed yarns from the Isle of Orkney, which is a private owned island, and the lady on there has her own flock of sheep, which are North Ronaldsay sheep and pure, because obviously with the them living on one island, then only breeding amongst themselves, if you know what I mean. So they're seaweed eating sheep, so the yarn that is produced is quite soft, and I love the colours of this one. It reminds me of seaweed, the colour of seaweed. Beautiful, isn't it? I love that. That I love. So I'll put that to one side. Now, this was hand dyed, again, North Ronaldsay yarn, and it's a traditional Orkney shawl that people would wear. It would only be like this. It would just be like a triangle, basically. The idea came from Elizabeth Lovick. That's it, Elizabeth Lovick's pattern book, which I've shown you before. Okay. And that's hand dyed in North Ronaldsay yarn. Now, this is a cardigan based on, well, a jacket, waistcoat, that sort of thing, based on a pattern I saw on Drops. It's very simple to make, actually, and I think I've got it upside down. I've got it upside down. Let me put that back on the model again. Yeah, so the idea is that, yeah, it hadn't been right. Let me just put that over like that. What's that look like? Well, it looks a bit better anyway. But the idea was that I trimmed it with some more of this yarn that I had left. Oops. It's all dropping around me, sticking to my foot. And so I trimmed it with this. Now I can take it off. Now I've shown you the right way round. This is the shoulder area at the top. And that's the collar that goes around. And it has a curved hem, as so. But the interesting thing about it was that you start with that square there. Now the one pattern I saw was done on bigger needles. I did this on 4mm needles. But I do like the contrast of the ruffle. But this was made using some hand-dyed yarns from the other side of the mainland Orkney. And so there's the darker purples and of course the lighter one for the front band and back band. So it's very pretty, isn't it? I like that. Now this one is totally designed by me and it needs blocking. Yeah, it needs blocking. But you can see the basic of it, and you've seen me hand embroidering this, right? I'll put up a little bit of a video to show you. And I'll get it off the model now. Oops, there you go. And so it has a stand-up collar, like so, which was done in crochet. I thought that was the easiest way around that one. Again, this is using some of the hand-dyed yarn from the other side of the main Orkney Island. That's the West Mainland, we call it. I'll put all the details of where I got it from. And I knitted a separate sleeve and then sewn it in to the armhole because of this ruffle here. Now this ruffle came from a pattern, an old vintage pattern. So I thought, well, I'll do the ruffle from the vintage pattern, but the rest of it is mine. So what I've done is I've done a set of stripes, and then when if you saw the video, and I'll put a link to it, I did the embroidery all the way around it. And there's the flower, embroidered flowers in the front. I just love the contrast of colours, don't you? Now these yarns came from Catalonia in not far from Barcelona, but I'll put the details of the yarns on the screen. And it's a double knit, and they come from a sheep called the Ripolessa sheep. I use the Spanish yarn because I don't know if many of you know, but in 1588, the year of the Spanish Armada, all the ships were blown off course and went around the top of Scotland and back down past Ireland and back home, but very few ships ever made it home because the weather was terrible. And it's, you know, was it November 1588 or was it a bit earlier? This time of year for storms, whew, you can understand it. So we had these ships coming round the north of Scotland trying to get home, and I think it was called the El Griffin. I'll put the details on the screen because my memory is was shipwrecked, and the survivors were on the Fair Isle for a while, and then they were taken to Shetland where they were looked after. But then I think about 4 of them escaped in a rowing boat of some sort or other, and how they got across the sea in a rowing boat is another story, and were shipwrecked on the Isle of Westray. The legend is that there are the survivors married into the community and called themselves the Dons, and they lived in the north of Ireland separate from the rest of the community, and they were there for a couple of 100 years, and then they integrated, really, I suppose. But yeah, so that was interesting. So I thought that represented another little bit of the history of the island, using some Ripolessa sheep from Catalonia. It would be lovely to know if one of the sailors were from Catalonia, because then that would be even more relevant, wouldn't it? So that's that little part of the collection. Now let's do a little bit more. Well, I don't know what went on there, but all of a sudden, after showing you all my other part of the collection, the video continued, but the audio stopped. So I'm going to have to re-record that bit. So unfortunately, I haven't time to do that this week. But I thought that would be a nice part 2. But to finish the video, what I'd like for today, I'd like to sort of talk about the test knit pattern that I've had out for the Evie sweater. Yep. Well, my lovely ladies have been working really hard and putting together their own little collections of the Evie sweater. And the pattern will be out on the 1st of December on Ravelry. This time I'm going to do it as either individually, or you can buy the pattern and get the Tresness Summer Tea free, or you can get the Tresness Summer Tea now with £2 off at the moment, and that goes on until the end of January. And so I think I'll do a nice little offer for your Evie sweater and the Tresness Summer Tea patterns, so that you've got some ideas for presents, etc., for the coming winter season, if that's what you do. And therefore, yeah, there's some potential for some really lovely garments. And one of my test knitters is putting up some of her options on her project. So I'll give you a link to the pattern project page, I think I'll call it that, on in the description below. Anything else I can think of? Yeah, so look out for that, December 1st. That's coming quickly. Is it the end of this week? No, I think it's next week, isn't it? It's Sunday. Is that correct? This video should be up on Friday, and I think the pattern's out on Sunday. Hang on a minute, let me just check. Yeah, the 1st of December is Sunday. There you go. So, thanks for coming along with me today. So, I'll see you again very shortly, probably in the next week or two, with the second part of this video and the second part of my Noltland collection. So, keep knitting! It's cold now. Well, here in Britain, cold, wet, that sort of year. Winter's come early.